On the weekend I said we'd be putting it into this week's show, it'll be going to next week's show. Now, the reason it was going to be in this one was this was going to be the last, but we've since decided to go on with another 2 shows to actually use up the footage that we've got here. Now, this segment's one I've probably had a few goes at trying to put together, and what we'll do is actually use some overlay from our cruise that we had just prior to Christmas. Now, to pinch a phrase from Eddie Maguire, a week's a long time in football. Well, in television, a week's a great deal longer. The show that you're seeing this week was actually put together, it's normally supposed to be done by the beginning of the previous week, but this one's running quite behind. The one you saw last week, that was actually filmed 3 weeks ago. I guess a bit over 3 weeks ago, so that's how long it's taken to get that one to air. And lots happened between then and now, and there's a few little hiccups have occurred, and you know, I'm not laying any blame on anyone or any organisation or anything like that for this being the last, or sorry, the 3rd last show of Cruizin. So over the next 2 weeks you will see a lot of the footage that we've taken from various other bits and pieces, and hopefully the 2 Steves between them will be able to sort of put that one together, because realistically I hadn't really intended to spend a lot of time in front of the camera. I was aiming at getting more behind the camera type time, and well, not even really that, more on the editing side, and that I'd hope that by now we'd been at the stage where I would have been able to have somebody, been able to afford to pay somebody to come in and do the editing end of it, which would free my workloads up quite a bit. The workloads in putting a show together like this, unless you're sort of involved in the industry or whatever, you probably can't really appreciate what goes into it. I'm not blaming anybody or saying it's your fault for not realising, but at the end of the day, when I started this out, I didn't have a clue how much work went into doing this sort of thing, and it was always intended to be a part-time thing. It's become a full-time thing. I make a living out of it. The living I make is not huge, but it's enough to keep me going, and there's an old saying, something along the lines of if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But I do get a lot of, well, especially when we first started, I've had a lot of positive comments from viewers and so forth, and the positive comments still come, but what happens nowadays is we get a lot more of the negative comments and negative responses and so forth. Now, I'm not pointing the finger again at any one person in particular, but a couple of people that have been watching the website or visiting our website, going on the forum, would actually be aware of some of the things that have arisen over the last, by the time you're watching this, bit over a week, and you know, there's things that have happened on there, things that have been said, and things that have been said on air, off air, and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I've started doing this show because of my passion for the motor vehicle side of things. Now, I've been involved in hot rods for a lot longer than a lot of the people that are there today. Not as long as a lot of the other people that are there today. But it was still my main thing of interest, although I had been around street machines, show vans, speedway, drag racing, those sorts of things as well. And I initially thought that this was going to be very much a hot rod show, which I learned quickly from viewer feedback, from sponsors, from everyone out there, that you know, hot rods is great to have in your show. It's not necessarily the be-all and end-all, but it's not the only thing that people are interested in. And one of the big successes of Cruizin has always been the widespread sort of diversity we've had within the show to cater for, not very often, but occasionally, like the 4-cylinder cars right through to the V8s, the street machines, the muscle cars, the restored cars, the classic racing, the drag racing, all that side of things. And the feedback we've had and a couple of surveys we've actually done out there have indicated that the main core element of what people want to see and what most of our sponsors evolve around is the modified car movement, predominantly street machine and drag racing side of things. But there's also some involved with the hot rod and the 4-cylinder brigade, the rotary side of things, late model stuff as well. But we've never really been a late model show. Now, a lot of this criticism that we get of, or especially over the last few months, has been I haven't seen, or such and such a car, or why didn't you get my car at such and such, and all these sorts of things, which even when a person says we haven't got enough, like I mentioned earlier in the show, Falcons that we did at, or Fords that we did at Motivation, the people that make those comments, it's always about the car that they've got or the type of car that they've got. And I have always tried to be as unbiased and as mixed and diverse as we possibly could, working within the bounds that we have here and what the viewers are telling us they want to get to, and what's physically able to be done within a week time slot to put a show together. Now, another thing that we do actually cop a bit of complaint from, or have in the past, is things we haven't covered. You know, why weren't we at such and such, and why didn't we get down to, you know, an event in particular, which is an event that, you know, they'd be asking about because they're concerned about it. Now, we try to get to what events we can. In most cases, it's not a problem. Now, clubs, organisations, promoters, all that sort of thing, really do need to let us know when events are coming so we can get to them and cooperate with us. Now, we had a situation arose, and one of the things I was asked about going back towards the end of last year was why weren't we at the Hot Rod Show? Well, that's one that has been addressed on our website and has come up again, and what that really boils down to is a breakdown in communication, I'll put it down to, between myself and the promoter there, which should have been sorted out a long time ago, but it has been discussed during this last week, and you know, it's basically resolved. There's different things that were said at the time and all that. One each took it different ways and whatnot, but we didn't sit down and talk about it. And, me as the producer should have, and the promoter as, you know, a promoter probably should have before then. Now, when we go to cover an event, one of our, and everybody else I know of in the media industry's criteria is that we've got free rein to go and cover as we see fit within reason, and you know, free admission to go along and do what we've got to do our job. It's not as if many of the times, like, we get to look at the cars at the car shows and get to look at this, that and the other, but generally we're pretty hectic, and we don't get to enjoy the event as such. And it's something else we did over the Christmas break was Shane and I actually went on a couple of cruises as father and son, rather than racing from point to point and covering these events and that sort of thing. So, which we did enjoy, and it was great. But back to this one, our criteria is that we expect cooperation, free entry, and freedom to do as we see. Now, I'm not pointing the finger at anyone saying this is the reason why, you know, Cruisin's going. Whether it's going for good or whether it's going to come back, at this stage I honestly do not know. But it is not the sole reason, and don't let me try and imply otherwise. It is one of the factors in the decision that I have made, and only I can make, as to the future of Cruizin. Now, I'd like to extend my thanks and gratitude to all those that have helped, that have participated, have sent me the emails, grabbed me at an event, grabbed me, well, down the shop, although a lot of the time I just want to sort of have a bit of time to me too, and said, oh look, I saw my car, thanks for getting that in the background, or, you know, it's good to see my car, or I saw one of my mates' cars, these sorts of things. It's really good. It's all those sort of positives that have tended to pick me up and get me back enthused again to do what I do, because I'm an enthusiast, not because I'm a media personality, because I'm not. I never have been, never will be. I've always operated as Murray. It's all I ever can be as far as I'm concerned. I don't have any formal training in this industry whatsoever. My background is very much different to this, I can assure you. Neither does Shane, who works the camera, and I owe Shane a huge thanks, not just because he's my son, but because of the work he's done. He's always there, doesn't complain, you know. That's what it's all about. To the two Steves that have helped with their presenting, and Seth when he's been there, and going back a while, Tim Blake, thanks for giving us those mix of presenters. Now, not everybody likes everybody, and I assume there's a hell of a lot. Oh, bloody Murray's as dry as, he's boring as, he never smiles, whatever. Like I said, I've done what I've done because I've wanted to do it. Hopefully we can resolve, or I can resolve, what is going on so that we can come back after a bit of a break. And all I can say is thanks to those that have been supportive and have done the right thing by us over time. And we'll head across to a word from our sponsors. They're another one that I owe a huge, huge thanks, because without the sponsors we wouldn't have the show. Without you, the viewers, we wouldn't have a show. Without the vehicle owners and the events promoters, we can't run a show. We need all of you to do it. But more importantly, I've got to be there and ready to do it. Go to word from the sponsors. Back in a second. That's it for this week's show. Like I was saying earlier, who knows? Thanks to everybody that has shown us a great deal of support over the last 2 years. To the knockers, well, what can you say? I've done what I can. Just thanks a lot.